2021. Commissioners will call into the meeting. The meeting will be viewable via webcast and TV options, and is also posted a few days after the meeting on the MPRB website. With that, I will call to order the meeting and ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne. Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Assange. Commissioner Assange. Commissioner Severson. Oh, thank you, Commissioner Assange. Commissioner Severson.
Present.
Commissioner Meyer.
Here.
Commissioner French.
Here.
Commissioner Forney.
Here.
Vice President Vita.
Present.
President Cogill.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. I want to note to commissioners as we move through is now under reactions at the bottom of your screen. And of course, if you're not able to find that, just let me know. Seeing no hands raised, no discussion, I'll ask the secretary to take the roll on the approval of the agenda.
Commissioner Bourne. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Assange.
Aye.
Commissioner Severson.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
That carries. I'll ask for approval. It doesn't look like we have any minutes to approve, actually.
No.
So I'll move forward onwards to reports of officers. Before I hand it over to the superintendent, I want to clarify a few appointees to outside boards, commissions, and committees. A couple of items here. First, I'd like to clarify who is on the Tree Advisory Committee. And that includes from District 1, Peggy Booth, from District 2, Giuseppe Marari, the at-large committee appointee
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
That carries. Moving on to the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee Chair and Vice President Vita.
On behalf of the Legislative and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, I would like to move Resolution 2021-109, a resolution approving 1-year contracts effective January 1st, 2021 with Rice, Walter, and Mosley LLP in the amount not to exceed $85,000 and Tom Workman in the amount not to exceed $30,000 for lobbyist services.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Any discussion? I'm seeing none. So I'll ask the secretary to take the roll on resolution 2021-109.
Commissioner Bourne, Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
No.
Commissioner Hassan, Commissioner Hassan, Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you, Commissioner Hassan. I have 7 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 absent.
The resolution carries. Moving on, we do not have any unfinished business or new business, so we'll move here into petitions and communications. Start with Commissioner Musich.
Pass.
Move to Commissioner Hassan.
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Hassan. Commissioner Severson.
Pass.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Commissioner Meyer.
Pass.
Thanks, Commissioner Meyer. Commissioner French.
Pass.
Thanks, Commissioner French. Commissioner Forney.
Pass.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. Vice President Vita.
Thank you, President Cogill. I just want to quickly say today is a joyous day. We have the first woman vice president elected to the United States. She is the United States vice president. This is such a joyous occasion. Thanks to everyone who's wearing their pearls today during the meeting. Shout out to all of you. I appreciate it. It's so cute to see the pearls all over the screen today. Just a joyous day for me, and I'm sure so many others.
Thank you, Vice President Vita. And I will echo that. I am very proud to be part of this country today, to see a peaceful transition of power occur. And while there's a lot of hard work ahead of us as a nation and as a city and as a park system, I feel a lot of hope and energy right now, and I look forward to much of what's going to happen in the coming weeks and months, which will certainly affect the park board in a variety of ways. So excited to dig in. With that, I'll ask for a Oh, we have about 5 minutes here, so I think what I'm going to do is recess the full board, and I will go into committee. I'm going to recommend we go into, let's see here. My apologies, I'm just trying to go to the right committee that would be somewhat quick. Doesn't look like any of them are quick. I'll recommend we go into the Administration and Finance Committee, and we will have to note that we'll have to come back here in about 5 minutes. So Chair Musich, or sorry, Chair Forney.
So we're not adjourning.
We can't.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I'd like to convene the Administration and Finance Committee. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice President Vita,
Present.
Commissioner Musich,
Present.
Commissioner French,
Present.
Vice Chair Hassan,
Present. Present.
Chair Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank you. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Chair Forney, I think there was one item you were meant to pull from this agenda.
Oh, thank you. I apologize. Yes, this is true. So item number, Resolution 2021-118 is being pulled from the agenda. So can I get an approval of the amended agenda?
Second.
Do we need to move the amended agenda? The agenda as amended?
Yes, that's what I was doing. So,
Okay, it sounds like AK moved that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, so Secretary, please call the roll on the amended agenda.
Thank you, Chair Forney. Vice President Vita,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan,
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
We don't have any minutes to approve. We have 4 action items, and I don't know if the president wants me to start going into any of them, or would you like me to recess? What is convenient?
Well, we have about 3 minutes. I suppose that if you feel like none of them can be executed that quickly, we can recess, and I will slowly go through the process of getting people going on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't believe that they can be. These are good, healthy discussion items for
Okay.
our committee members. So I will recess the Admin and Finance Committee and go back to their full board meeting.
All right, I will reconvene the regular meeting of the Park Board. It is 5:28, so we're just a few minutes away from open time. Open time due to COVID right now, is a call-in option, and I know we have a number of folks signed up. It looks like we have 14 individuals or 13 individuals signed up to speak during open time this evening. Open time is the Park Board's opportunity to hear from the public. Members folks who are speaking are able to sign up to speak over the phone and can speak on any topic that they wish. You do just ask that folks speaking refrain from discussing any pending personnel matters.
I will, Amy. I'm
And refrain
Also,
from
seeing what's going on.
discussing from using any discriminatory or harassing language. With that said, I will see if we have our first individual who signed up online. We have, I believe, Evan Roberts, first person signed up. Is Evan on the line?
I'm checking right now. All right, looks like so. 1 second. All right, caller 1 is on the line.
Thank you. Evan Roberts, if you're on and you can hear me, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address. For the record, you have 1 minute to address the board.
Okay, yes, hi, I'm here. Sorry. Am
Go ahead.
I on? Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, hi, my name's Evan Roberts, and I live in Arthur Avenue in Prospect Park, and I'm speaking in favor of the budget proposal introduced in your resolution 2021-116 to use the one-time funds for the installation of gates on the parkways, which would allow flexible conversion between uses of the parkways. I think the parkway openings in 2020 were a wonderful idea, and although just prompted by COVID, demonstrated that we haven't really been using the space on the parkways fairly. Through much of the temperate months and even in some of the colder periods, early spring and late fall, there are more people walking, running, rolling or riding on the parkways than in cars, but we give most of the space over to cars. I think gates are a great idea if we're going to convert frequently between the uses on the parkway. I'd urge you to consider, in considering this proposal, to identify sections of the parkway that might be permanently closed, and the lower parkway on Lake Harriet, which duplicates a lane 50 yards above it, is one. In other areas, if you can use things which would be movable seasonally, that would also be great. So please support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Our next speaker on the line is Joe Mitchell. Joe on?
Hi, this is Joe.
Joe, you can go ahead if you state your name and if you're comfortable, your address, and you have 1 minute to address the board.
Thank you. This is Joe Mitchell. I live in Cedar Riverside at 2006 South 6th Street. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the proposal to buy barricades. My partner and I live in Cedar Riverside within walking distance of the river. And this summer, while the parkways were open to people, we took advantage of that. We visited the river quite frequently. And during that time, we got engaged on the banks of the Mississippi. It was a beautiful time, a beautiful experience, and it was made possible because the Mississippi River didn't have car traffic. It was a lot more pleasant, a lot more quiet, a lot more enjoyable. I'd invite the park board to think bigger and expand beyond just 4 barricades that will only close a small portion of the parkways and expand the project to the whole park board road system. These parkways surround Minneapolis's most beautiful spaces, and they should be open to people with the option of closing them to cars much more frequently than they have been for special events. I also believe this is essential for climate recovery. Thank you for your time. I support the proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Our next speaker is Alex Tsatsolis.
Yep, this
is Alex on? Alex,
yes, I'm on.
You can state your name if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have a minute to address the board. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Alex Tatsoulis. I live in Longfellow at 2920 45th Avenue South. I'm calling in support of the parkway closure infrastructure. I live a block off of West River Road, and this summer with the limited closure of the parkway, it was an amazing gift to myself and my family. We have 2 little kids at home all day, with work from home, and those parkways truly offered us a place to walk, bike, and play. Having those parkways serve as parks and truly be open to all users was an incredible gift to the city of Minneapolis. I would ask the park board to please consider investing in whatever resources are needed to be able to recreate that experience for everyone in the future again. The parkways could truly be a gem in our city and serve more than just a commuter thoroughfare. They could instead be a place for all of us in the city to get outside, to explore, to enjoy, and to appreciate all that Minneapolis has to offer. I truly appreciate your time tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tsoulis. Our next speaker is Jesse Lorenz. Is Jesse on the line?
Yes, speaker 4 is on the line.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Jesse. If you could state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 1 minute. And go ahead.
Yep. My name is Jesse Lorenz. I live in Linden Hills, and I'm calling to comment on 2 items. I'd like to encourage the commissioners to approve the $160,000 to build parkway closure infrastructure so that the parkways can be used by people on a regular basis to run and walk and rollerblade, skateboard, play, and bike on them. The open parkways during the spring and summer of last year were a real joy. During these times, I kept thinking the Parks Board should do this all the time. It was great. So I hope that you'll approve this item and direct staff to install the gates in at least 4 locations to start. I'm also calling to encourage the commissioners to approve the ongoing and one-time youth violence prevention line items. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Our next speaker is Becky Alper. Is Becky on the line?
Speaker 5 is on the line.
Great. Becky, if you're able to state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have a minute to address the board.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, I'm Becky Alper. I live at 2303 30th Avenue South in Seward, and I'm speaking in support of the parkway closure infrastructure. The pilot closures in response to COVID-19 taught our community so much. When streets are safe from cars, people flock to them. And when asked, over 500 Minneapolitans clamored for more of these. I urge you to make 3 changes. First, consider increasing the amount from 160 to maybe 300,000 to make a bigger impact in 2021. Second, there's an opportunity to learn from this work, and I urge you to incorporate evaluation into this project. Who are the users of these car-free streets in terms of age, race, gender, and disability? Do closed parkways mean more people are biking or walking to get to jobs, schools, and everyday destinations? I encourage you to think about allocating an amount around $20,000 to collaborate with researchers at the University of Minnesota. And third, let's make sure these closure devices reflect our community and are cost effective. Maybe it's planter boxes or public art. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Becky. Our next speaker is Risa Hastad. Is Risa on the line?
I am on the line.
Fantastic. If you could state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Great, thank you. Hi, I am Risa Husted. I live in Broadbourne's district. Thanks for taking my comments today. I'm calling in support of investing in intermittent parkway closures. Parkway closure infrastructure is a low-cost, no-brainer investment, which will improve access to outdoor recreation and open opportunities for additional programming on the parkways. This practical addition to parkway traffic control will reduce the operational cost of hosting events on the parkways and make parkway recreational use more available for more people. I really appreciate you all taking my call today, and I thank you all for considering this addition to the budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Risa. Our next speaker is Alex Burns. Is Alex on the line?
Speaker 6 is on the line.
Great. Alex, if you could state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 1 minute to address the board.
All right, thank you. My name is Alex Burns. I live at 2457 Lindale Avenue South in Minneapolis. I'm calling to support a couple things. First, I wanted to support the funding for permanent parkway gate pilot. I think it's a small but important step to reimagining our parkways and hitting our city's mobility and sustainability goals. Last summer, it was really amazing to see so many people enjoying the open parkways, people from a range of backgrounds and abilities. And it was really cool to see them walking around or rolling around, biking around without fear of being struck by a driver or of dealing with the noise and pollution of traffic. And I really think this is an opportunity for us to lead. I would encourage, like a previous commenter said, that we study this and maybe increase funding to electrify the gates and really have a robust pilot for this first go round. And then I also wanted to support the budget items for violence prevention. I think it's really important. And I don't know if that's my time, but wanted to call that out as something to support.
Thank you, Alex. Our next speaker is Emily Willie. Is Emily on the line?
Yes.
Fantastic. Emily, if you'd state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, you have 1 minute to address the board.
Hi, my name is Emily Willie. I am a renter at 2015 Central Avenue Northeast, and I'm speaking in regards to parkway closures. According to a recent MPCA report, Minnesota is behind on its air pollution goals, and studies also show in the Twin Cities that acute air pollution is variable between neighborhoods, leading to the recommendation of a, quote, localized approach to pollution reduction, end quote. Permanent closure of parkways to cars will aid in this effort, as well as enhancing safety and accessibility in and around parks, which is a core goal of the Parks for All plan. I support funding permanent gate installations for parkway closures and encourage an increase of the allotment to $300,000. I am also in favor of additional funding to study the impacts of parkway closures on health and safety. Outdoor recreation should be enjoyed by all without fear of breathing in toxic fumes or being injured by a car. The popularity of walking, biking, and rolling is here to stay, even in the coldest part of winter, and parkway infrastructure should adapt to this increased demand. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Our next speaker is Chris DeRoche. Is Chris on the line?
I am also in favor of additional funding.
Yes, speaker 9 is on the line.
Great. Chris, if you'd state your name, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 1 minute to address the board.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Chris DeRoche. I live at 4417 Grand Avenue South, and I am calling in regards to the line item around the parkway gates and the temporary parkway closures. I don't want to reiterate what everyone said already, because I think everything has been really good points. But what I do want to talk about is a story that I had this summer from the parkways being closed. I have a now 5-year-old daughter who is learning to ride her bike. As we know, the existing bike paths around the parks and in the grand rounds are kind of tight spaces and are spaces that go pretty quick. As a young kid and as a tentative kid, the parkways provided a space for her to be able to have the confidence and the space to learn to ride a bike. And now she's riding all over this place. The other thing is my parents moved back from the suburbs to the city and have never really felt confident riding bikes around the city, even on some of the bike trails. This summer, they were able to ride from their house about a mile away from Lake Harriet and to be able to go to eat because the parkways are closed. So I would just say thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to creating dynamic spaces on our parkways that are open to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker is Kjell Olsen. If I got that right. Is Kjell on the line?
Yes. Hi, this is Shell. Am I connected?
Yes, Kjell, you are connected, and you can go ahead, state your name if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 1 minute to address the board.
Great. Thanks. I am Shell Olsen, and I live at 2317 25th Avenue South in Seward neighborhood. I'm calling to also support the pilot project to install gates on the parkways. I think it's a great idea to begin to recreate the wonderful environment that the park board installed last year during the pandemic to open the roads up for people walking, rolling. I grew up in Minneapolis near Lake Harriet. I've spent my entire life on the wonderful parkway system that the city has built, and the only problem with it is that it has too many cars. It's actually more of a freeway network than a parkway network, and I would really love to see the city move past pandering to drivers everywhere and making the parkway something special, and starting with these small gates would be the best possible way to do that. So thanks.
Thank you, Shell. Our next speaker is Sam Penders. Sam, are you on the line?
It shows that speaker 13 is on the line.
Great. Sam, if you could state your name, and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 1 minute to address the board. Try once more. Sam, are you on the line?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could state your name, if you're comfortable with your address for the record, and you have 1 minute to address the board.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, my name is Sam Sanders. I live at 606 7th Street Southeast in Minneapolis. I wanted to comment on the Parkway closure infrastructure resolution, specifically Resolution 221-116. I think this is a great proposal to put gates on the parkways. Opening up the parkways to people on bike and foot last summer was a huge success, and I think this would be great to keep this going forward. So I urge you to vote yes on this. I think it's just a better use of park space to let people walk on the parkways.
Thank you, Sam. Our final speaker this evening is Travis Norvell. Is Travis on the line?
Speaker 14 is not on the line.
Okay. That concludes our speakers for this evening. Thank you all for your time. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of the Park Board.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, and I guess I can just adjourn. So I will adjourn the regular meeting and turn it back over to Chair Forney for the Administration and Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Cogill. I will reconvene the Administration and Finance Committee meeting. So first of all, we will move Resolution 2021-114. Somebody would.
I'd like to move Resolution 2021-114, a resolution accepting and approving the revised Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board financial management policies effective February 3rd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there any need, anybody wishing to have a report on these changes to our policies? I just also want to remind everybody that for many of you, if you go to reactions, that's where you would raise your hand if you needed to. And I also just want to indicate that we're going to limit conversation to the action items here to members of the committee. So we can be a little bit more efficient with our board meetings. So I'm not seeing anybody who, excuse me, Director Weissman, please.
Chair Forney and commissioners, I do have just a really quick brief overview of the changes to the financial management policies that I would like to provide to the commissioners.
Please do. Hurry on.
So, Deputy Ringgold, if she could, or Secretary Ringgold, if she could bring that slide deck up. So our financial management policies, which are adopted by the board, provide a framework for fiscal management of the MPRB. These policies are designed to ensure the efficient, responsible management of our financial resources and provide the MPRB's long-term fiscal stability. Board-approved policies should be reviewed at least once every 5 years or when the policies are out of compliance with current practice or other governing policy ordinances or laws. The MPRB's financial management policies were last updated by the board on February 15th, 2017. Next slide, please. The first area that is updated is our general fund balance language to include reference to one-time stimulus spending in the time of a recession. This is language that this board has supported through our budget frameworks when we were dealing with COVID. So I am recommending that we include this language in our financial management policies. I also added language to the professional services contracts area to reflect the charter requirement for board approval of all legal services contracts, regardless of the amount of the contract. Next slide, please. There are several changes throughout the document driven by City Council actions and Minneapolis Code of Ordinances revisions that were made by the City Council related to procurement. The City of Minneapolis, through council action in 2018, revised the Code of Ordinances to increase spending authority limits from up to $100,000 to up to $175,000, effective January 1st, 2019. The City of Minneapolis also, through council action in 2018, revised the Code of Ordinances to reflect the participation in the target market program for contracts up to the $175,000 level. At the end of 2020, the City Council has revised the Code of Ordinances to increase staff's authority from up to $2,500 to up to $5,000. So that is an increase for staff authority that allows procurement to occur without the interjection of city procurement. Next slide, please. Since January of 2019, the MPRB's financial management policies have been inconsistent with the city procurement and current practice. The board decided to keep our threshold at the $100,000 level and keep our thresholds lower than what the city is currently at. What has occurred is that there are a risk of audit findings because we are tied to city procurement and our construction and commodity bids are done by city procurement. We are not in compliance with the formal bidding process, which is happening at $175,000. Currently, city staff have to consistently remember that they need to look for board actions for anything over $100,000 for the park board. The park board is participating in the target market program for contracts up to $175,000 because of the city ordinance change, even though our policy currently states that we only participate in the program up to $100,000. And starting in January 1st of 2021, for the small dollar purchases, procurement will not be getting into the approval path for purchases up to $5,000. Next slide, please. When I brought financial management policy changes to the board back in 2019, the board was concerned if we increased the thresholds to $175,000, that it would have an adverse impact on board authority. So things have really changed over the last 2 years, and I did an analysis of all the resolutions that came before the park board during 2019 and 2020, and the recommended changes will have a minimal impact on current board authority. You'll see in 2019, there was 110 resolutions that came before the board, 30 for professional services contracts, 80 for construction and commodities contracts. Of that 110, only 15 were below $175,000. In 2020, 87 contracts came before this body for approval. And of that 87, only 13 were under $175,000. Another conversation that this board had at the time is that they felt that the park board was a small government and they should have thresholds that are lower. If you go to the next slide, please. I'm just showing this slide for reference. I extracted this information out of a report that the Office of the State Auditor issues And it shows that our Park Board 2020 budget of $126.2 million is only lower, or there's only 4 cities in the state of Minnesota that have a larger budget than the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Another conversation was that the city of Minneapolis and city departments were much larger than the Park Board, and we should have lower thresholds. So in the 2020 City of Minneapolis annual budget, I'm showing that for their general fund departments, the MPRB is larger than all of the city departments except for police. So we do have quite a large budget, and structurally, I believe that moving towards the $175,000 limit to get us into compliance and consistent with the city of Minneapolis and state statutes is an appropriate change for our financial management policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wiseman. That's really good, insightful information. I appreciate it. I don't see any hands raised. Anybody? Okay. I will make my comments, and that is, thank you for keeping us in alignment with the city and expressing, some of the risks that we are now hopefully avoiding by being in compliance. So I would encourage everyone to vote in favor for these policy changes. And so I will ask the secretary to call the roll.
Vice President Vital.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Pass. Pass.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to our next resolution, 2021-115. If somebody would share with us.
I'd like to move resolution 2021-115, a resolution transferring operations and maintenance lottery proceeds in the amount of $543,632.62 from the general fund to the capital projects fund to be used for regional park projects, and to amend the 2021 capital improvement program due to improved condition of the general fund and the funds no longer being needed for the 2020 regional park operations.
Thank you. So I would like to have a presentation by Director Wiseman. So please.
Chair Forney and Commissioners, thank you. Secretary Ringgold will be pulling up my PowerPoint deck of slides, and with your approval, I would actually like to talk about 2021-115, 116, and 117 in my presentation.
Quite efficient. Thank you very much.
All right. Next slide, please. So before you this evening, you have 3 resolutions. So I will remind the committee and commissioners about the 2020 financial status, and then go over the 3 resolutions that have been put before you. And also just briefly talk about the tabled resolution 2020-362 that I hope to have this body untable on February 3rd. Next slide, please. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but our financial outlook has greatly improved for 2020, and we are looking at ending the year with $2.6 million available to be added to our general fund balance. Next slide. So with the 2.6 million available and our current fund balance of 4.7 million, we have a fund balance requirement of 5% of operating budget based on our MPRB's financial management policies. That's about $4.5 million, which leaves an estimated general fund excess fund balance of the $2.8 million. Next slide, please. Again, this is the enterprise fund operations. Those have improved as
these are one-time funds that we are using here, that these aren't ongoing funds. So they should be used they should be used this year. They won't be like rolling over into years and years at Weber or the innovation dollars. This is just a one-time allocation of $50,000 out of the innovation fund to seniors.
Thank you for that clarification. So not seeing any other hands, I'd like to speak to the amendments. First of all, I think I might have acknowledged this last time, but this amount of money is unprecedented, I believe, and I so appreciate staff in directing it in what they've heard have been a concern to us. I did not understand last time about the paying off in the mortgage and how fundamentally that would change our future, okay? So just wanted to comment about that because what was heard loud and clear was about the need to address youth violence, youth in general. And if I add up my numbers correctly, I believe that we're close to $1 million that we're suddenly going to be able to invest in addressing youth violence, youth programming, etc. And to me, that is just whatever. I'm just thoroughly excited about that. And I appreciate so much Vice President Vital noting that one of the missing links in here was about seniors. And I appreciate how she's allocated things, that we have not depleted much of anything, but $150,000 total to go towards seniors, I think is a prudent way to do things. So I will be supporting that amendment. And so with that, will the secretary please call the roll on the amendments to the resolution?
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
No.
Vice Chair Hassan.
No.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 3 ayes, 2 nays.
Great. Now, speaking then to the amended resolution, is there any questions, any discussion on that? Items. I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, so I would like to speak to this. We did start, the discussion a little bit about these parkway closure infrastructure, and I just really want to make sure that everybody understands that. Once again, this is a very prudent, fiscally accountable item that I'm grateful that staff has come forward with. What they realized last year is how costly closures are, and we have had closures forever. And we will continue to have closures for our events, things like that. And so the example I want to give is something like the Twin Cities Marathon, which is a huge impact on the system. The event permitter is the one who pays for those closures. But something like the Minneapolis bike tour and everything, that's something that we pay for when we sponsor something. And so there is a cost. Not too often do we realize what those costs are. We did this past year. And so this is a way of addressing it and being able to curb some of those costs. So I'm just so appreciate not only the mortgage, paying that off and being able to have in perpetuity funding that we now can utilize for all the various needs, within the system. This is the same thing. I am not hearing in any way, shape, or form that we will be doing more closures. We do not have that as a change in the policy. So there are no new closures that will occur. It just will be able to expedite the types of closures we've had prior to 2020. So I really want to make sure people understand that. So Otherwise, I am very supportive of these allocations. So with that, I don't see any other hands. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
No.
Vice Chair Hassan.
No.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 3 ayes, 2 nays.
Thank you. So that moves us on to our next action item, Resolution 21-117.
I'd like to move Resolution 2021-117, a resolution to amend the 2021 Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board General Fund and Internal Service Funds budgets.
Wonderful. Any discussion on this item? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, will the secretary please call the roll?
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
No.
Vice Chair Hassan.
No.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 3 ayes, 2 nays.
I believe that concludes. Am I correct? Because we are not doing 21-118. That's correct.
Correct, Chair Forney.
I will adjourn the meeting.
Time being 7:02, I will call to order the Standards and Conduct meeting. Secretary Ringgold, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Present.
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner French.
Here.
Vice Chair Hassan. Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye. Yep.
Chair Meyer. Yep.
Aye.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hassan. Chair Meyer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye. Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
And we have no minutes. So is there a motion for Resolution 2021-119?
I'd like to move Resolution 2021-119, a resolution amending Section 16 of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Rules of the Board to establish the procedure for submitting amendments prior to a board meeting.
Thank you, Vice President Vita. So this was a resolution, a rule that I wrote along with assistance with Council Rice and Secretary Ringgold. So I'm going to speak to it for just a little bit. First, I'm going to read how the full rule would read. So right now, Section 16 of our rules says that all committee reports shall be in writing, as shall main motions and resolutions. This change would keep that and would add the following. I would say, in order to be considered at any scheduled board or committee meeting, all resolutions, main motions, amendments to resolutions and main motions, and additions to the agenda must be submitted in writing to the president/committee chair and secretary by noon Central Time of the day prior to the meeting where the matter is to be considered. The secretary shall provide notice of the proposed matter to all other board members by 5 p.m. Central Time of the day prior to the meeting where the matter is to be considered. The time requirements of this rule may be waived upon unanimous consent. However, all such resolutions, main motions, amendments to resolutions and main motions, and additions to the agenda must be submitted in writing to the secretary and distributed to all board members before they may be considered. So I, said back in December that I was going to bring forward a rule change to require amendments and additions to the agenda to be submitted 24 hours in advance so that commissioners, staff, and the public could have the opportunity to review that and carefully, vet any proposals that are made. After having discussions about it, we decided to change it from 24 hours to specify like the specific time the day beforehand. There were a few reasons that we chose the times that we did. We also wanted to leave it open so that, for example, for a legislative meeting, that'll be at 8 in the morning. So we wanted to, write the language in such a way that it considered that. It also allows for an exception when there is unanimous consent. So for example, if say a commissioner were to pass away the morning of a meeting or something, you would want to pass a resolution commemorating them. That's the type of thing that we want to make sure we can still do. Even in that case, I think it would still be good to require that be in writing. So I included that in the rule. Before I move on to commissioners, I'll ask Councilor Rice if you have anything to add to what I said in my explanation of this proposal.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, no, I think the concept is really quite simple. Although the term 24 hours is not used, the idea behind this is notice be given on any, before the board or committee votes, that all commissioners would have roughly a one-day notice what they're going to be expected to vote on at the meeting on the next day. That's basically the first two sentences that are added, and then the third requirement is, and of course that notice would have to be in writing and then shared with all the members, and as Chair Myers explained, that even if something happens at a meeting where there's consent to add a matter, the commissioners would have to come forward with a written amendment or addition or something. So basically, the idea is that all the commissioners would have a written document in front of them and adequate time to consider and think about it. I would add that this idea has been around and thought and considered for a while. The legislature adopted something like this about 8 years ago, where before members went on the floor to vote, they had a knowledge of what was being voted on. The city council has a slightly different process, but usually by the time the council gets to an actual city council meeting, they have a similar, either call them guardrails or safeguards, so they know what's being considered at the time they take a vote on a final action of the board.
Thank you, Councilor Rice. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, Chair Meyer. So I guess I'm wondering how the public gets noticed of the information being shared with commissioners, because if we can't reply all to messages sent out by the secretary or superintendent, and this reads to me like a bypassing of that to allow for commissioners to be able to say, oh, I don't like what's in the agenda, here's what I'm going to propose instead, and then you're sort of starting a conversation outside of the public view. So how does that concern get addressed?
Yeah, I'll let Secretary Ringgold to speak to that. You know, we did talk about that, and Secretary Ringgold had proposals that aren't necessarily outlined in the rule about how to put things online. I'll let her speak to that, how she would address that.
Chair Meyer, Commissioner Musich. So we would post all of the amendments we received right on the agendas. So they would show up in the public-facing component of our website where you can see our agendas, and then typically there are items like attachments underneath a specific item. We would literally post all of the amendments right there by 5 p.m. the night before the meeting is scheduled. We would also change some of the interface on our board agendas to alert folks that even though we send out the agenda on Friday, that they should check the agenda at 5 p.m. the day before the meeting to ensure there aren't any changes. So that was our way of ensuring that it was viewable publicly, and then giving the public an indication of when they should look for those changes to be made.
Okay, so we wouldn't be sending out a new gov delivery saying the agenda that you were previously notified about 4 days ago or 5 days ago, whatever the number is, has been modified and new content has been added. Because I worry that people are going to think like, okay, now I've read everything, now I have to go back out, I have to try to figure out where those changes were made, how to find it, do people really want to dig through? I mean, it takes me many hours to get through our board packets and agendas, and I just would like to make sure that whatever we're doing, whatever our practice is making it as easy as possible for commissioners and the public to be able to find whatever new content is being added to what they were previously notified to consume.
And
Chair Meyer, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to ask you to comment on the gov delivery because we had talked about that as well.
Sorry, Chair Meyer. Chair Meyer, Commissioner Musich, the initial gov delivery we send out will indicate to check back at 5 p.m. the night before. When we post something new on the website, there's a symbol that shows up that it articulates that it's been changed. And, certainly there would not be an issue with providing an additional gov delivery at 5 p.m. if there are changes. So that is simply a procedural thing that can be added. I wouldn't see a problem with that.
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, the updated content is on the actual section of the page that's been updated. It's not on that main page. Is that true? It's not on the main meeting portal page. It's on the actual page where the modification was made.
Secretary Ringgold, do you have an answer to that? I don't.
Chair Meyer, Commissioner Musich, I actually happen to have the portal up at the moment. So what typically happens is you see the little icon. I don't know if you can see. Does it say past meetings?
Yes.
On your version right now?
Yes, it does.
So this is the location where all of our agendas are posted, and usually if there's a change, there's a little icon change right here that signifies that there was a change made to that agenda. And then when you go into that agenda, you'd be able to see the change.
Okay. I just want to add to what Secretary Ringgold has said to address Commissioner Musich's comments. Like, to me, this only adds more transparency for the public. In order for an item to be actually added to either the agenda or as an amendment to an item that's already on the agenda, you would still have to make a motion add it. So, you would still have to do what you have to do now. You would just have to have provided it in writing beforehand for people to review. So it's only adding to it. Commissioner Musich, if you have suggestions to add to it, either in this rule, or I think it might be better to have it as policy, since it's for staff as opposed to the commissioners. I'd certainly be receptive to adding more to make it easier for the public to access any changes that are made to the agenda amendments.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Chair Meyer. I guess I can talk further with Deputy Superintendent Ringgold about the procedure that would be utilized to ensure that this is easy for people to use, right? Because I agree that this would make it a lot more transparent to people where folks are at before we go into a discussion. It allows them to submit comments on both what's being proposed as part of the original agenda, as well as being able to comment on anything that might be proposed by other people to try to help build support for that. So I do see the value in what's being proposed. I just want to make sure that we're making it easy as possible for people to be able to find what it is they're putting out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
One last thing quickly.
I'm going to go to Commissioner French, and then we can come back to you for the second time.
Okay.
Commissioner French?
Yeah, I won't be supporting this resolution today. I think sometimes government has to be able to act on the fly, and I think sometimes we need to do stuff right away. Putting unnecessary rules in place, I think would stifle that. So I won't be supporting this today. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner French. Commissioner Musich for the second time.
Okay. The last thing I had was in the resolution itself online. At the end of everything you read to us, there's an extra "and." So if we could remove that, because when you read our actual board rules, it ends with motions and resolutions, period, and then it goes into section 17.
I think the "and" just leads to the next resolved clause.
Oh, just to the resolved. Okay, so it's not part of the rule. Just
Only the underlined part is the addition to the rule.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Commissioner Vita.
I'm sorry, I didn't intend to raise my hand.
Oh, okay. All right.
Commissioner Meyer.
Council Rice.
Yes, just 2 points to be clear on it. I think when we discussed this with Secretary Ringgold, the thought was that if a commissioner, and any commissioner would have the right to just ask for an amendment or an additional item to be put on any agenda, the notice be given. I believe I understand from Secretary Ringgold that request then would appear on the printed agenda before each committee or the board. Is that correct, Secretary Ringgold?
Chair Meyer, Council Rice, yes, we would post all of that at 5 p.m. the day before the meeting.
Okay, thank you,
Yep.
Secretary Ringgold. So Chair Meyer, and I think to Commissioner Musich's question, the agenda essentially then the commissioners would have before it would be any proposed action and any proposed amendment or amendment to it, so that what's on the printed agenda would be what would be considered. And then one other point where the word "where" appears, it probably should be "when." Secretary Ringgold pointed that out. So if you read down the second sentence, the second new sentence currently reads, "The Secretary shall provide notice of," wait, it's actually the first sentence. In order to be considered at any scheduled board or committee meeting, all resolutions, main motions, amendments to resolutions and main motions, and additions to the agenda must be submitted in writing to the president/committee chair and secretary by noon of the day prior to the meeting, instead of where the matter is to be considered would be when, W-H-E-N, when the matter is considered. And that same change should be made in the second sentence. So I think the correct language would be instead of where the matter is considered to be when the matter is considered in both of those places.
Okay. So striking two wheres and making them whens, was that the only change that needed to be made? Or
yes.
The rule itself? Okay. If there's not any objection, I'm happy to accept that as a friendly amendment to the proposal. Forget who made the original motion. Secretary Ringgold, can you remind us and ask them if they would accept that as a friendly amendment?
I had Vice President Vita.
Vice President Vita, will you accept as a friendly amendment to replace where with when in the two places Council Rice described?
Yes.
All right. Is there any further discussion about this item? Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, Chair Meyer. I had an additional question that Commissioner French's comments brought to mind. So our board rules can be, we can take a vote to suspend our board rules. Does the wording of this, where it says the requirements of the rule may be waived upon unanimous consent, supersede the ability of the board to suspend the rules and bring forward a resolution anyway?
That is a good parliamentary question for Council Rice.
I was afraid you were going to ask, Chair Meyer, Commissioner Musich, I was afraid you were going to ask that question. I think maybe I'd like to hear what the board, these are the board's rules. So the one argument is that yes, 2/3 rule, we still have the 2/3 rule, and it says in the rules that I believe any of the rules can be suspended at any time with a vote of 2/3. This last sentence about the time requirements of this rule may be waived upon unanimous consent is potentially in conflict with that. I guess my ruling would be that the suspension of the rules would supersede that.
Okay.
So in other words, Commissioner Musich would be right, because it's the final rule is suspension of the rules. Section 41 reads, these rules and regulations, or any one of them, may be suspended by 2/3 of the members present at any regular meeting and may be amended or repealed at any regular meeting, subsequent meeting when proposed by a majority vote. So yes, I'd say the intent of the final rule, Section 41, would be that it supersedes everything else. So you are correct, Commissioner Musich.
So this rule does not have the same parliamentary procedure applied to it as any other rule that the board
unless you want to write that into the rule, which says that it could be, you'd write probably notwithstanding Section 41, the time requirement of this rule may be waived only upon unanimous consent. So if you want this rule to be absolute and fixed, where you have to give the 24-hour notice, and the only way to add anything to the agenda, then if that's the intent of the body to be clear, and so there's no dispute, at the beginning of the last sentence, I would write notwithstanding Section 41 of these rules, the time requirement of this rule may be waived only upon unanimous consent.
Councilor Rice, are you saying that we need to add that notwithstanding clause to make it so that the 2/3 could suspend the rules, or that it could not?
That it could not.
Okay, so the default is that it could.
Add the notwithstanding, it means that the 2/3 rule does not apply.
Okay, so my thought on this, and I'll invite commissioners to give their thoughts on this particular part as well. I'm fine with allowing us to keep the suspension of the rules. We can just establish as this as the default rule. This is the norm. It is the expectation that if you want to add something to the agenda or an amendment to an existing item, that we expect you to submit it in writing to the secretary and president or chair beforehand. But we can leave in place the protocol for suspension of the rules to allow for whatever unforeseen circumstances may justify it, but everyone will know that it was a suspension of what we normally do. Let's see,
May I have the
Commissioner
floor back?
Severson. Oh yeah, Commissioner Musich.
Thank you. So I think we should strike that last sentence then, if we're going to allow this to be treated like every other rule, which I think makes sense. We should strike the last sentence. Interested to hear what my colleagues think. Thank you.
Okay, I'll hear what other people have to say about that, and we can consider an amendment if you want to propose it later. Commissioner Severson.
He not on the committee.
Oh,
So am I being called on or no?
I will call on you, Commissioner Severson.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate you. There seems to be a lot of confusion with this. Seems to be a lot of questions asked about legalities. I've got 2 text messages from 2 constituents on the north side with the WTH, what is going on? So I would ask that Commissioner Meyer, you take this back and do a little bit more work on it and have a little bit more sound package with a better understanding, so we're not creating confusion for the public. Although I do commend you for trying to work on improving how we do business.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. I believe that going through committee and then this is the opportunity to make any revisions that need to be made. So this is the time that we are doing what you're asking us to doing. At the full board, we would consider the final proposal. I'm happy to support Commissioner Musich's amendment if she would like to propose it to strike the last sentence. Commissioner Musich, would you like to make that amendment?
Thank you, Chair Meyer. I would. I would like to amend the resolution to update section 16 with the existing language, less the sentence that reads, "The time requirements of this rule may be waived upon unanimous consent. However, all such resolutions, main motions, amendments to resolutions, and main motions and additions to the agenda must still be submitted in writing to the secretary and distributed to all board members before they may be considered."
Okay. Is there any further discussion to the amendment? Commissioner Severson, did you have your hand raised to that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought it would go down. I'll take that down. Sorry about that.
All right. Like I said, I will support this amendment. Secretary Ringgold, please call the roll on the amendment to the rule.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Abstain.
Vice Chair Hassan, did you say abstain?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 4 ayes, 1 abstain.
That carries. Is there any further discussion to the motion as amended? I'm not seeing any. Secretary Ringgold, please call the roll on the amended resolution.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
No. No.
Oh, thank you. Vice Chair Hassan.
No.
Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 3 ayes, 2 nays.
That carries, and that concludes our business for the evening. So if there are no objections, I will declare this committee adjourned. And that's the last committee, I believe.
Wow.
Right, wasn't it? Are we done?
I think we're
You're
done.
correct. Have a good
Okay.
evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great night,
Have a great
everyone.
rest of your month.